In the bitter winter of 1943, Base Ironcloud sat on the edge of a jagged cliff in the Aleutian Islands. It was a place where the wind didn't just blow. It screamed, tearing at the corrugated metal of the huts. The soldiers stationed there called it the icebox. There were no palm trees or blue lagoons, here only gray rock, black water, and a fog so thick you could lose your way walking 10 feet from your barracks. Corporal Elias Static Vance was the base's high-altitude radio technician. His world was a small circular room filled with the hum of vacuum tubes and the smell of hot copper. While the pilots flew the missions, Elias was the one who kept the electronic heart beating. Without his radio towers, the base was just a lonely rock in a blind ocean. The weight of the gray life at Ironcloud was a test of a man's mind. The sun rarely broke through the heavy Alaskan clouds. Days were spent scraping ice off equipment, and nights were spent listening to the Williwa's sudden, violent gusts of wind that could flip a jeep. The men grew quiet, their faces becoming as stony as the cliffs they lived on. "Do you ever think about the sun, Elias?" asked Miller, a young guard who often stopped by the radio shack for warmth. "I mean, the real sun, the one that actually feels warm." Elias adjusted a dial, listening to the crackle of a distant signal. "The sun is still there, Miller. It's just waiting for us to finish our job. Don't let the fog get inside your head." The blind flight one Tuesday, the great gray descended. It was a fog so dense that the runway lights looked like dim fireflies. Suddenly, a distress call broke through the static. It was a B-24 bomber, the Lucky Lady, returning from a raid with one engine dead and a navigator who had been wounded. They were flying on fumes, circling the island, unable to see the landing strip. "We can't see the lights." "We're going into the drink." The pilot's voice crackled, full of static and desperation. The base commander looked at the runway. Even with every floodlight on, the fog swallowed the beams. If they don't land in 10 minutes, they're going to hit the mountain or ditch in the freezing sea. No one survives that water for more than 5 minutes. The human beacon Elias knew. The primary runway beacon was malfunctioning because of an ice-clogged sensor at the top of the 60-foot radio mast. The mast stood on the very edge of the North Cliff, exposed to the full force of the gale. "I can fix it," Elias said, grabbing his heavy coat and a blowtorch. He stepped out into the storm. The wind hit him like a physical blow, nearly knocking him off the cliff. He began to climb the metal ladder of the mast. Each rung was a slick bar of ice. His fingers, even inside heavy gloves, began to go numb. Halfway up, a gust of wind swung the mast so violently that Elias's feet left the rungs, leaving him dangling by his arms over the black abyss of the Pacific. He didn't let go. He pulled himself back up, his breath coming in ragged gasps. When he reached the top, he found the sensor encased in a 2-inch shell of frozen sleet. He ignited the blowtorch, the blue flame flickering wildly in the wind. He worked with a feverish intensity, melting the ice away while the mast groaned under him. The sight of home, suddenly, the sensor clicked. The main beacon surged to life, a brilliant rotating beam of white light that sliced through the fog like a sword. Above the clouds, the pilot of the Lucky Lady saw it. "I see it. I see the light." Elias clung to the mast as the massive bomber roared overhead, so low he could feel the heat of its remaining engines. He watched as the heavy bird skidded onto the icy runway, its tires screaming as it fought for grip. It stopped just yards from the end of the strip. The silence of the morning, when Elias finally climbed down, he was shaking so hard he couldn't stand. His face was frostbitten, and his hands were locked in the shape of the ladder rungs. He walked into the mess hall, just as the crew of the Lucky Lady was being served hot coffee. The pilot, a man with gray hair and tired eyes, walked up to Elias. He didn't say a word. He just took off his own leather flight jacket and draped it over Elias's shivering shoulders. It was the highest honor a pilot could give a mechanic. The war would eventually end, and the icebox would be abandoned to the foxes and the snow. But for the rest of their lives, 11 men from the Lucky Lady would remember the night a man climbed into a nightmare to become a lighthouse for the lost.